Welcome, everybody. It is Monday here and everywhere on Spilling the Anxiety, and I am your host, Angel, and we are here to talk about brand new topics. So, I believe it was on Friday. We are going to talk about something very interesting today because I feel like there is some sort of, I don't know if it's just me, maybe the kind of person that I am, but I almost felt like there was a generational misunderstanding between me and my cousin, or something that I didn't quite see eye to eye on. And I wanted to talk about it today because it's something that I learned about. And apparently it's called trauma dumping, which, after we get into the definition and everything of what it is, I feel like I might be guilty of. I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I actually want to provide a definition because I want to tackle into what it means. Is it something that I'm guilty of based on trauma that I have experienced? And if so, how many of us are guilty of it? Because I think that maybe I'm being too lenient because it's something that I do, but we will dive into all of that today. So our topic today is trauma dumping. Let's see how many of you guys know what that is before I get back from the break and explain it. So we're going to take a quick short one, our usual beginning break, get settled in, and get ready for this episode because it's going to be a doozy. Yes, I just used the word doozy. Oh my God, the aging process has started. All right, you guys, we're going to take a quick break and we will be back. Thanks for listening. Okay, you guys, we are back. Wow. Okay. I really wish. So during the break, I looked up the definition of trauma dumping so I don't go ahead and give you guys the wrong information. I actually learned a lot. So let's start unpacking here. So I was actually watching a TikTok video the other day. Oh God, if Carrie wasn't using my TikTok account, I could actually go back and look at this video because her trigger finger is happy as hell. She just sits there and likes videos. And since I'm not on TikTok too much anymore, because I'm so swamped with everything that's going on, it would have been easy for me to find. I hate that sound I make. I'm so sorry. It's toxic. I'm so sorry. Probably also using that wrong. That sound you just heard was me drinking the non-existent water that's in my damn cup. Okay. I don't know. Oh, I mentioned this in the previous take that didn't make it. I try really hard to be as authentic as possible for you guys by not. I don't even listen to my podcast before I post it for you guys. I would like to keep an air of authenticity. So when I record it, like right now I'm recording it, and if I say something fucked up, I'll catch it and I'll be like, oh, that's not what I meant to say. And I'll go back and I'll take it out. Now, for those of you that will subscribe to my website and see the video episodes, or maybe if you guys get a chance to catch the glimpses of the clips on YouTube, then you'll see that there are some sections where what I'm saying is continuous, but it is very obvious that I cut something out. Usually that is because one of my kids walked in, my dad walked in, something that was making noise was happening, or I said something highly inappropriate, or I mentioned somebody's name that I didn't mean to. Pretty much just any sort of grade A fuck up. But other than that, I don't sit down here and listen to the whole podcast and it's like, oh no, that's got to go out. I very rarely edit anything that I do because I would like you guys to see me in my 100% natural form. So that being said, when you guys hear me looking something up or something like that, I would like to be right in the shit that I tell you. I don't do much preparation. As is my life. I've never done studying. I've never anything. Almost anything that I go into, I just go into either having prior knowledge of it or hoping to pick it up along the way. I was watching a TikTok video the other day about how easily people use the word gaslighting and that in most situations they use it incorrectly. That's a lot there that I'm going to let that sit for a minute because I agree. I think that there are a lot of labels and terms nowadays that a lot of people may use incorrectly. This is not, God, I really hope I don't get attacked over this. But so when I was growing up, being a transgender person and being a transsexual were two different things. So I did look it up prior to this. A transsexual, by definition, used to be exclusive to somebody who has had gender affirming medical intervention. So, for example, a man trapped in a woman's body has now done the medical intervention to become a man or a trans man. And transsexual or transgender would be falling under the category of somebody who just does not identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth. Now it is more of, while it is still pretty much an umbrella term, I feel like there are a lot of people that don't differentiate nowadays. And whether or not that matters to the trans community, I don't know personally. This is something I have very little experience with. It may be something that bothers and may not be. I do get a lot of, when I was growing up, I'm Hispanic. I consider myself Hispanic. A lot of people, if you look at it technically, a Hispanic would be somebody from Spain, while a Latino or Latina person would be somebody from Latin America. I consider myself Hispanic. That bullshit doesn't matter to me. And I don't consider myself Latinx. I consider myself Latina. I fully recognize that there are people that may feel more comfortable with the labels that have been provided for everybody or that have been made to fit every category. Me personally, I'm just very old-fashioned, and I like being called Hispanic. So that being said, the TikTok video that I watched the other day that I keep referencing but I haven't gone back to is that there are a lot of people that misuse the term gaslighting. For example, I spoke in my podcast a couple of days ago about how memory can be kind of selective and it can be particular to the person who is sharing the memory. If I say, I remember that on the day that I gave birth, I was wearing a purple shirt, and somebody else who was there says, absolutely not, Angel, you were wearing a green shirt. And we get into an argument over what kind of shirt I was wearing. And then they say, listen, you're bugging. You definitely was wearing a green shirt. And then I say, oh my God, you're gaslighting me right now because you're trying to get me to argue with you. And I know it sounds ridiculous and it sounds kind of like a situation that may not be, it isn't, it's hypothetical. But I feel like there are a lot of situations in which people throw around the term gaslighting. And this is what the TikTok video was discussing, that there are people who use the word gaslighting when there are contradicting points of views, or there are people who try to make something seem like it's really not their fault. But I feel like there is a lot that goes into that needs to be unpacked. Gaslighting, appropriately, is a term used when somebody else tries to distort over a very long period of time someone's reality. I personally have experienced gaslighting, although I did have to question myself whether that was the appropriate term to use, because having opposing points of views and opposing points of memory does not equate gaslighting. What gaslighting is me trying to make something that is my fault, your fault, trying to distort your reality to believe that I'm right and not yours when I know in fact that your account is true. Now, just because somebody remembers something one way and you don't remember it said way does not mean that they are gaslighting. They may in fact 100% wholeheartedly believe that they are in fact right. So I think that gaslighting is a term that it's not always wrong when it's used, but I feel like there is just more to it. And gaslighting is something that it is right up there with people, saying narcissism. It's people who are narcissists, they are very sick people. And just because you run into an absolute asshole that does not give a fuck about your feelings and about what you're doing with your life does not immediately make them a narcissist. They may just be a very bad person. This brings me into the trauma dumping situation. So, my cousin expressed to me a situation in which she introduced the term trauma dumping to me because I guess she is seeing a gentleman, or was seeing a gentleman, I guess, depending on how that conversation turned out, that he was being a little weird. I will give it to her. He was being weird. So I guess he goes ahead and he checks her Instagram story and sees that she is outside of her house, hanging out with friends. He messages her as if he doesn't know this, as if he hasn't checked the story. And when she says that she's out, like, hey, what are you doing? Blah, 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 whatever. I'm outside with my friends. He goes, really? I thought you were home the whole time. He knows that she wasn't home because he saw her Instagram story. So that's where I found it weird. Like, please don't pretend that you weren't just, like, if you saw it, and you're curious about where I'm at or who I'm with, just ask. But instead, he decided to pretend like he hadn't seen it. I will give that to her. That is weird, 100%. But I guess they ended up getting into this conversation where he is expressing that he had experiences with women in the past or people in the past that he could not trust because they were the kind of people that, they went out, they hung out all night, or whatever it is. A lot of people like clubbing and partying and just being out. And he needs to know if that's anything that he should worry about with her. I believe upon seeing her response, I believed that it was, don't get me wrong, I believe that she expressed herself very clear, very 100%. And to be honest, it might have been better than I would have at her age. There's like a 5-year difference. But I do also, she's very confident about herself. She doesn't really give a fuck what other people think. She will say what she said, and she believes that she is very independent and she's very feminist, move forward, and and all of that. And I don't always tend to disagree with, or I don't always tend to agree, forgive me, with her point of view, because I think that when I was 21 or when I was younger, I felt like I knew everything and I felt very confident about myself and I felt like nobody could tear me down. And the truth is that after having children, after dealing with different personalities, after going through different life changes, that air of confidence that you have around you, it's not that it diminishes, but it may not include everything. It may not encompass everything it once did. I think that for somebody to believe that everything will always be that way, especially when there are certain things that you haven't experienced, that may come off as a little cocky. So I expressed to her that I saw her response and it was, it was very her. Let's put it that way. It was very her. And I tried to express to her that I am very happy with you for standing up for yourself. She said, hey, I'm 21. I like to do this and I like to do that. And if you have a problem, then maybe you should just come to me like a man and say so instead of slinking around my story and, trying to pretend that you didn't see whatever it was. If I feel like I'm going to have a problem trusting you, then whatever it is that we're doing here, it cannot happen. All very true things. Where I disagreed with is that I saw her use the term trauma dumping. And it was when I asked her, or I guess I kind of deduced what trauma dumping was from what she said, which was basically, just because that's happened to you with other people doesn't mean you get to put that on me, because I am not those other women that you were dealing with. Again, all things that are true. But upon looking up the definition of trauma dump before doing this podcast, because I thought it was a very interesting topic, I ran into an article that was discussing how trauma dumping may be toxic when you do it with your friends. And apparently the appropriate definition to trauma dump is you putting your problems, venting your problems inappropriately to somebody else at a not the right place, not the right time fashion, and that it can be toxic for both the venter and the ventee, because it may make the person that you're venting to feel uncomfortable, and the person who is venting, usually this kind of thing, trauma should be expressed to a certified mental health professional. And if the response that you get is inappropriate, it may further victimize you. Let's put it like that. In my experience, my response to her was, that's great that you stood up for yourself, but I think that we may all carry some trauma with us based on previous experiences that I don't think we mean to. I think he was just being honest with you about what he was going through and what his fears were, because you were actively participating in something that he was scared of. For example, I have personally experienced infidelity. That is not to say that every man moving forward I will accuse of cheating, but it is something that I have experienced that I did not even see happening under my nose. So when I see certain things, I feel uneasy. I may not attack you about it, but I will feel uneasy. And it's kind of hard not to put that on the next person that comes through. It's like saying that you were bit by a dog, a bad dog that took your right arm, and then when you see another big dog, you're not going to feel fear, or you're not going to be cautious towards it. Which is why I think that the term was used inappropriately, and she may have been a little bit, I don't want to say aggressive. I want to say she was just a little bit too presumptuous in what his intentions were, as opposed to kind of discussing it with him. I think that if this was a woman, a man saying this to a woman, that it would have been, there may have been some sense of, listen, I'm not this guy, and some sort of reassurance. But I feel like because it was a man, that it was like, hey, listen, I'm not those other bitches you was fucking with. I'm a lot better than that. So how about we just take a back seat? And I think it's real easy to forget that maybe this person might have been a victim too. So let's take a break right here, so I can gather some thoughts so I don't keep hitting y'all with the and the. So we'll take a break, and when we come back, I will continue on the topic and about how maybe my own bias might have affected the responses that I gave her. Stay tuned. All right, and we are back. So before the break, we were talking about how, because he was a man, it may have come off differently. And I think that we are all guilty of that. I think that sometimes when we see men that may talk about what happened with previous women, that we automatically assume, well, that's not an excuse to be a hoe, a man hoe, or, whatever it is. And it may come off as controlling or manipulating. But I think that, I have, maybe I'm guilty of trauma dumping, but when I saw his response, when I saw how he was, I thought that it was very appropriate for him to discuss his boundaries and say, hey, listen, I've had fears of this. You are doing this thing that I'm fearful of. is this something that I have to worry about? Should I even invest more time in this? Because if this is a lifestyle that you like and that you're a part of, it's not something that I want to be. I've also been, he said something, or she said something, I don't know, one of them said something to the effect of, I think it was her. She said, you know what? I'm not your girlfriend. We're talking. So you don't get the right to control me and to control what I do and all this other stuff. But I do feel like there is that courting period that comes in between I can acknowledge that I like you, you like me, we're deciding to move forward and keep finding out about each other until we're at a stage where it's like, okay, I think I'm ready to commit to you. But I think the commitment starts before then. It starts when you decide, hey, we're going to find out about one another. But we move so fast in today's day and age. It's almost like, okay, we're talking, I like you, we're out on a date. It's okay for most people, not all. It's okay for us to hug and kiss and fuck and go watch movies and all that other stuff. But then when the real commitment stuff comes about, it's like, oh, okay, how can you say that I'm your girlfriend, or how can you say that I'm your boyfriend when we've only known each other for 2 weeks? But in 2 weeks, you've already fucked and got a Plan B pill, had a pregnancy scare, went out on several dates, exchanged nude pictures, all this other stuff. And I think that our boundaries are not clear when it comes to what it is that, there are certain things that we should hold off until we reach that level of commitment. Intimacy is fucking huge. It's not just something you do with anybody. And I feel like if I'm trying to do that with you, then yeah, there is some level of commitment there. Even if we haven't said it, hey, we're boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, I'm sharing a piece of myself with you. It's not, oh, but I'm allowed to explore my sexuality, and I'm allowed to explore the things that I like and don't like, and I don't have to be someone's trophy thing to have sex with them. It's all very true. This is your body. You can do whatever it is that you want with it. But upon further inspection, when you have sex with somebody, they're capable of being the person that you biologically tie yourself to for the rest of your life if a child comes from that union. If a child comes from that union and you don't know shit about me, including the fact that I may be crazy, I think that you might want to pump the brakes there a little bit. And if you could go back, then that's what it is. People don't think about sex like that anymore because IUDs exist and birth control and Plan Bs and condoms and, the pulling out method works 85% of the time. And women can only get, I think that when they tell women that you could only get, your chances of getting pregnant naturally are only 25% a month. Oh my God, is that the biggest bullshit I've ever heard? Like I said, I don't think I've ever had an accident on my ovulation day and not ended up pregnant. Just not. Now, I did for some time practice the rhythm method, which is all about having sex around your fertile days, unprotected sex around your fertile days with my partner. It worked out fabulously. But there are way too many one-night stands who end up pregnant for them to tell women, you can only get pregnant. Your chances of getting pregnant are only 25% a month. Because then that means that every one-night stand on the universe just so happens to be irresponsible on their ovulation day. When you think about it, that is one day in the middle of the month between the end of your period and the start of your period. And then you'd have to take into account maybe your fertile week. Your fertile week is like what, 6 days. Those 5-6 days out of a 28 day cycle. That's it's kind of like a game of darts if the dartboard was really fucking big. Like it's like the odds of getting a bullseye and you've never played darts before. Like I think that I've never been one to believe that, for example, if I like you and you like me and we're talking, I already know that the goal is, hey, let's be boyfriend, girlfriend. Let's be into a relationship, because once we get into a relationship, we can get into a deeper level of understanding with each other. There can be intimacy, and then we can explore things like, well, is this somebody that I want to spend the rest of my life with or not? That mentality doesn't begin when you make me your boyfriend or girlfriend. Now a lot of people can say, oh, but that's, you guys really haven't sat down and discussed or defined your relationship, so you really can't be upset if he was sleeping with somebody else. I sure the fuck can. Because even if we are not boyfriend girlfriend, then we have talked about liking each other and about potentially getting to know each other so we can move towards that step. So if you're out here fucking Becky or Pete, whatever your flavor is, and I'm like, wait, but I thought you liked me. Does that also mean that I'm in this race with Becky? Does this also mean that she is vying for the same position in your life that I am? And so I've always been the kind of person that's like, listen, whether you're my boyfriend or not, whether we're in a committed relationship or not, I'm going to treat you like what I want you to be to me. Me and my kid's dad were never married. Ever. And I mentioned in a previous podcast that I made the mistake of giving attention to somebody else. I know that is not a euphemism for having sex with anybody else. I didn't have sex with anybody else. But I definitely sought out attention, flirtationship and all this other nonsense from somebody else. But that is also because when this was happening, I was under the assumption that even though him and I were still clicking, that I wasn't even in the race for a committed relationship. We were terminated. We were over. That is what he expressed to me frequently, which is why when he was upset that this was happening, I understood that he was upset because maybe I lied to him about being interested in somebody else, and he still believes that I got intimate with this person, which I did not on any level whatsoever. He believes I got intimate with this person, and it's like, wait, but you were being intimate with me at the time. So were you just being intimate with both of us? That is not the case whatsoever. And if he could get past that fact, then maybe he would see that it was what it really was. But that doesn't change the fact that it hurt his feelings. Because when you are getting intimate with somebody and you find out that person is getting intimate with multiple somebodies, that's going to hurt your feelings. So when I saw this response from her, I felt like she was, I don't want to say trauma dumping because that's not the right word, but she was using her previous experiences and trying not to be a sucker and trying not to fall into the clutches of somebody else, because she's a very loving person. She is the kind of person who she will go above and beyond for somebody that she really loves. But I think that because she has been scathed in that department, that she was kind of like, well, you know what? I'm not going to stop being myself for anybody. In essence, she was doing the same thing. This gentleman decided that he was going to be overprotective of himself because he saw similar patterns that he didn't want to deal with. And so he asked her if there was anything to worry about. She didn't want to be manipulated and controlled again. So when she saw indicators of that, or what she perceived as indicators in this gentleman, she put her guard up. So in a situation like that, what do you do? Who gives in? I think that if you're going to be in that place, then maybe you are not in a position to speak with anybody, to talk with anybody, or to be in that race for a committed relationship. Because then you are always going to put your damage onto that person. I have to be honest with myself. I am not equipped to be with anyone. I have relationship trauma that I would never not put on somebody else. Add that onto the fact that if I could find somebody who would be patient enough with me, I am still there. My situation is just so complex. I'm not interested in finding a stepfather for my children. I was having this conversation the other day with somebody else. Women who seek replacement replacement fathers for their children. I think that's kind of corny. I can't get behind that. Because let's be real. It's not that your children need a father. Let's say that their father is involved. Great. They don't need a replacement father. Are you talking about that there needs to be a man in the house? Because that's not true. They can still get the guidance that they need from their father without him being in the house. If it's because their father isn't involved and you're looking for them to have a father figure, I think that there are so many ways that they can have positive male role models that isn't necessarily somebody who is sleeping in your bed. It's not a popular opinion at all. I do have very antiquated ways of thinking. If you don't like it, you can just, fuck off and find another podcast. Or, feel free to leave your commentary about how much this bothered you, because I am also well equipped to answer that and or ignore it. But all of that is to say that you need to understand first, before you step back out there are some women who the body isn't even cold yet. I think it's so important for everybody, not just women, to learn who you are as a person before you get with anybody else. There's a song by Zach Berman called Never Look Back, and I listen to it a lot. And in the lyrics, he goes, "We become who we are when we fall in love." And I think that is so true, because you have no idea the kind of person that you will be and the lengths that you will go through. When I was a kid, I sat there and I told myself, oh my God, if anybody ever cheated on me, I would never stand by that person. I am too much woman for all of this. I don't have to deal with this bullshit. I sat there and I patted myself on the back for being such a modern woman that I didn't need any man to tell me what I was going to do. It was that simple. As I got older, I realized that it's not that simple. I am guilty of having been cheated on and still choosing to stay. And that's because as I got older, I realized when kids are involved, it's not that simple. Hell, even before kids are involved, I love you. Is this worth throwing everything away over? And there's that suffocating feeling of, oh my God, well, I can't tell my friends. I can't tell my mom, because if they find out that he cheated on me and I still chose to stay, then everybody's going to think that I'm some sort of clown. But I chose to stay. And most times I don't regret that, because I'm a real ride or die kind of person. If I'm choosing to stay, we're choosing to fix whatever the issue was, we can move past this. And I didn't realize that meant that I was going to harbor a lot of mistrust, but I wasn't ready to let it go yet. And I think that we don't give enough credit to the things that we say we will never do, but we do anyway. And so I think it's very important that everybody gets some time to themselves as people to figure out who you are, both before you get into a relationship, which is why you probably shouldn't get into relationships when you're very young. And not, the high school love and all that other stuff, it's great, but it's the long told story of we were high school sweethearts and we got together, and then a bunch of fuckery happened between 18 and 24 because we were figuring out who we were as people. And it's very possible that we grew apart, or maybe somebody goes to college and the other one doesn't. I think there's a lot that goes on. So I think that you should just get to a point where if your first love doesn't work out, which it very rarely does for anybody, that you should take the time to figure out who you are. Without that, what happens is that you're trying to figure out who you are while you're with somebody else, while that person is throwing their mannerisms into you, not intentionally, but because when you're around somebody, you inevitably pick up their mannerisms. I can tell you right now that I have been, me and my kid's father we have been together for a very long time. I just turned 27 and I met him when I was 18. I had our first baby at 21, our second at 22. My God, is that right? Oh, you know what? It was at 22, but I was like on my way to turning 23. Okay, that makes no sense. It's gonna be like, wait, that doesn't even make sense. That math doesn't math. We lost the kid in between. I had our son when I was 25, turning 26. And all that time, I had been to college. I got my degree. I went to the service. I experienced the pandemic. I went to work. I did a lot, but a lot of who I was revolved around him. A lot of my life decisions were around him. So when I was stuck in this place where it's like, fuck, now you kind of got to figure out even the way that I eat now is because of things that he introduced me to. So figuring out who I was, that's a fucking tall order. I'm still trying to figure it out. So we're going to take a quick break here, and then I'm going to wrap up the segment with some final thoughts. Okay, and we are back from our break. So I wanted to listen back to some of it because I felt like I went off on a tangent there, which was accurate. When I was discussing about what happens when a relationship that somebody you had kids with doesn't work out, I do think that you should take the time to be alone, because a lot of times people don't take that time to be alone. You're finally free in a relationship that has been failing for God knows how long, because that's what it is. It's never overnight. It's always been failing for quite some time, and you feel that for quite some time. Then all of a sudden you're free and it's like, wow, I don't have the restraints of a relationship anymore. Let me get with somebody else that, might fill that void, because being lonely is fucked up. I don't wish it on anybody. If you haven't seen I Am Legend, please take it to heart. Being lonely is fucked up. Okay, everybody's like, oh no, but you're beasting because you have friends and you can go out. Guess what? I'm somebody who works from home. I don't see anybody but my children all day. Any day, pick any day, and I'm at home. That's why I laugh when people are like, are you home? Because yes, I am always home all of the time. Thank you for asking. I don't go out. I just moved to a new state where I don't know anybody. Okay, so yeah, I'm fucking lonely. But I think people need to be candid about, especially when you have children, to acknowledge that when you do choose to enjoy someone else's company, it is not for them, it is for you. You getting smashed in your bed every night after the kids go to sleep has nothing to do with the children. And if you say, well, that's not only what it is, Timmy needs a father and all this other stuff. So are you saying that you're exchanging sexual favors in turn for Timmy's tutelage under a male figure? Because that sounds worse. It honest to God does. So I think that you just need to be honest with yourself about what you get with somebody else for, because it is never for the children. You are enough. As single mom or single dad, you are enough. Do I think that anybody can successfully raise a child of any gender by themselves? No, because mommy issues and daddy issues do exist. But I do think that a woman can successfully raise a man, a little boy into a man, if he has strong male figures in his life. I think it's important for fathers to be present. I think it's important for mothers to be present. But in the circumstance, I think that people misunderstand that just because that mother or father is not in the house doesn't mean that they are not present. And I've also seen that there are a lot of women or a lot of parents, period, that are just scared of what it means. I'm scared of what it means. I'm scared raising my children here by myself, because then that means I can't share the fuck ups with anybody. It's me, myself, and I. I have nobody to blame but myself. When my kids are still wetting the bed or picking their nose or just fucking bullies at school or anything like that, it's my fault, because I'm the one that's home. I'm the one that's home all of the time. Now, can their behavior be acting out of something else? Yes. but I will immediately assume responsibility for what is going on with my children as their sole caretaker at the moment. Like I said, their dad, it's he's not here not because he didn't want to be, but because I chose to move. That was my decision. And granted, I thought that, the distance wouldn't be, I didn't think it would be for this long, but life threw a fucking wrench in there and was just like, hey, you gotta accept it. So we're trying to move forward like this, I take my children up to see their father comes down to see them. To say it works would just be a really fucked up, untrue statement. But it is duct tape right now, which is what matters. We will figure this out before it gets too deep. But right now, this is what it is. Going back to what, because I'm off on tangents all the time. And I'm also trying to shorten my podcast episodes for my regular listeners out there. So I think that when she used the term trauma dump, I don't think that I know how she meant it. She meant it of essence of, don't put your bullshit on me over here, because I have never given you any reason to believe that I'm like that. So why would you believe that? But that's like somebody coming up to you and saying, well, you should just trust me because I've never fucked you over and you met me half an hour ago. There are people who have been fucked over by people that they've known for more than a decade. There are people who have been fucked over by family members that they've known their entire lives. It sucks to operate under the mentality that a person is good-natured and good-hearted, and just because they haven't shown you that side of themselves, that you should just believe that that's who they are. But we don't always show our worst to everybody. Me and Carrie, I can hit her up, and or me and Diana, or me and Lee, I can just be like, hey bitch, what's up? And I can tell them, listen, you're being stupid right now because I just heard what you said and that shit sounds crazy. But with somebody that I just met, a friend that I'm hoping to meet, I use exclamation points when I talk to show that I'm enthusiastic about everything, and sometimes it takes some time to fall into that space, even as friends, where it's like, listen, I can be entirely honest with you because I feel like I know you well enough now. I don't think that this person was trying to dump his trauma on her and victimize her or himself. I think that he was just looking for a way to be honest. And in a world where we have to be paying attention to manipulators and people on social media go in and throw around terms like toxic and gaslight and narcissist, and there's pages for it. And, if you're a survivor, come over here and like this fan page. It puts everybody in the mentality of, you can diagnose this, and it's not what it is. And I urge you that when you use a term that you may be unfamiliar with, see, I heard trauma dumping, and based on what she was saying, I thought it was right. I was like, oh shit, that I've never heard that before, but God, does that sound right? And then upon some research, she's not even using it right. So I think that we should all just take a closer eye, and I think that when people are being honest with you and being honest, attempting to be honest with you, don't always take it with a grain of salt. Maybe they are just being honest. They're not trying to attack you because you've been attacked by somebody who also decided to be honest with you. I think you should be on guard, but don't hold everything against somebody, because that's what you are doing. You're moving forward and you're putting all the shit that somebody left you with onto somebody else. I do that. I am heavy to deal with. Everything that I come with, I don't have baggage in the sense that I've got, baby daddy A, B, and C, and I've got, a criminal record and a felony, and I can't do X, Y, Z because, this happened to me so many years ago. No, but I do have a lot of emotional baggage. And the only thing that I could ask is that if somebody sees me victimizing myself or profusely apologizing or teeming with anxiety, or even what may be accusing you of something that you didn't do because I have my own trust issues, I'm going to apologize in advance and say that I'm sorry. But this is just, you got here too late. This is the person that I am now. And maybe if you knew who I was before, maybe things would be better. But a lot of things have happened that have got me to where I am, and I don't know how to change back. With that being said, please tune in on Wednesday for another scintillating episode of Spilling the Anxiety. And I'm your host, Angel, and I am signing off. Thanks again.